Imagine standing on a shoreline where the horizon stretches into absolute nothingness. You look out at the gray, churning waters, believing you are looking at an endless ocean. But you aren't. You are looking at a giant lie, the largest landlocked body of water on planet Earth, the Caspian Sea. For over 2,000 years, mapmakers called it a sea, empires called it a barrier, but in reality, it was the ultimate choke point, a sunken geographic trap sitting right between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Have you ever wondered why the world's greatest conquerors, men like Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan, and Peter the Great, were obsessed with a body of water that has no natural outlet to any ocean? Because if you controlled the Caspian, you controlled the silk, the spices, and eventually the black gold that would power the modern world. Look at this map. To the west, the jagged, impassable peaks of the Caucasus Mountains. To the east, the unforgiving, sun-scorched deserts of Central Asia. If you were an ancient merchant carrying priceless silk from China to Rome, or a brutal nomadic army riding westward, you had only one narrow corridor to pass, a thin strip of land sandwiched between crashing waves and towering mountains, the iron gates of Derbent. Whoever controlled this narrow trap held the master key to global trade. In the 16th century, the Safavid Empire of Persia realized a shocking truth. The Ottoman Empire blocked every traditional route to Europe. So how do you trade when your greatest rival controls the land? You look to the invisible sea. The Safavid Shahs poured millions into harvesting raw silk along the Caspian coast in Gilan. Over 100,000 pounds of silk moved along these waters every single year. They built massive fleets of wooden galleys, braving treacherous, unpredictable storms, trading with Russian merchants coming down the Volga River. It was a hidden trade superhighway, invisible to Western European powers, until a young, ambitious Tsar named Peter the Great looked south. Peter realized that Russia was trapped in ice. To build an empire, Russia needed warm waters, and more importantly, Russia needed to control the lucrative Persian trade. In 1722, Peter launched the Persian campaign, marching over 30,000 soldiers along the swampy Caspian shore. Russia claimed the coastline, but they quickly realized the dark, terrifying secret of the Caspian. It is not just a trade route, it is a geographic trap. The moment you enter, the mountains swallow your supply lines, the salt flats poison your water, the brutal storms wreck your ships, and enemy guerrillas vanish into the mist. Peter lost thousands of men, not to bullets, but to the harsh, merciless climate of the Caspian coast. But what Peter the Great didn't know, what no one in the 18th century could have possibly comprehended, was that beneath those dark, storm-tossed waters lay a hidden force, a thick, black liquid that 200 years later would draw the most dangerous dictator. Fast forward to the late 19th century. The world was changing. Steam engines, factories, and early automobiles were hungry for fuel. And suddenly, a sleepy, obscure town on the Caspian coast transformed into Baku. By 1898, a single city on the Caspian shore was producing over 50% of all the oil consumed on planet Earth. The Nobel brothers, yes, the same Nobel family behind the Nobel Prize, and the Rothschild banking dynasty rushed to the Caspian. They built the world's first oil tankers, giant steel beasts cutting through the Caspian waves, pumping millions of barrels of oil up the Volga River directly into the heart of Russia. Baku wasn't just an oil field, it was the lungs of the Soviet Union. Without Caspian oil, Soviet tractors couldn't harvest grain, Soviet factories couldn't forge steel, and Soviet tanks couldn't move a single inch. And in the summer of 1942, Adolf Hitler knew it. Germany was running out of fuel. Their tanks were sputtering to a halt in the Russian snow. Hitler gathered his highest-ranking generals in a secret war room and uttered a sentence that would alter the course of World War II. If we do not capture the oil of Baku, then we must liquidate this war. Think about that for a moment. The entire strategic objective of the German Eastern Front shifted. Moscow was ignored. Instead, Hitler launched Blau, Case Blue, a massive, terrifying offensive involving over 1.5 million Axis soldiers. Objective: drive south, conquer the Caucasus, and seize the Caspian oil fields. If you were in Hitler's shoes at that exact moment, would you have risked your entire army? The German war machine surged across the Russian steppes like an unstoppable wave. General Ewald von Kleist's panzers roared toward the Caucasus Mountains. German soldiers reached the shores of the Caspian Sea near Elista. They could literally smell the salt water. They could almost see the oil rigs of Baku. They thought victory was guaranteed. But they had forgotten the golden rule of history. They were stepping directly into the Caspian trap. To protect the southern flank of his assault towards Baku, Hitler made a fatal, catastrophic mistake. He split Army Group South in two. One arm pushed towards the Caucasus oil fields, while the other, Army Group B, moved east toward a city on the Volga River, a city named Stalingrad. Look at the map. The Volga River was the only conduit carrying Caspian oil from Baku to the rest of the Soviet Union. If Hitler could sever the Volga at Stalingrad, he would starve the Red Army. If he reached Baku, he would fuel the Wehrmacht forever. It was the ultimate double-or-nothing gamble. The German war machine stretched over thousands of kilometers. Supply lines were stretched to the absolute breaking point. Fuel trucks ran out of fuel just trying to deliver fuel to the front lines. Panzers were literally abandoned in the mud because their tanks were completely dry. Meanwhile, the Soviets were desperate. Joseph Stalin knew that losing Baku meant total defeat. Soviet workers in Baku worked 18-hour shifts, building oil pipelines along the Caspian seabed, shipping millions of tons of oil across the stormy sea under constant air attacks. By late 1942, German forces in the Caucasus Mountains froze in their tracks. Heavy snows blocked the passes, supply lines collapsed, and at Stalingrad, the Red Army launched Operation Uranus, encircling the German Sixth Army. Hitler's grand dream of capturing the Caspian oil collapsed in the frozen mud of the Volga. Over 300,000 Axis troops were trapped. The battle for Caspian oil had shattered the Nazi war machine beyond repair. But if you think the story of the Caspian Sea ended with the defeat of Nazi Germany, you couldn't be more wrong. Because when the Soviet Union collapsed decades later, the Caspian Sea didn't become peaceful. it became a ticking geopolitical time bomb. When the Soviet flag fell over the Kremlin in 1991, 5 new independent nations suddenly woke up surrounding the Caspian Sea: Russia, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, and Iran. And immediately, a bizarre legal war broke out that would last for nearly 30 years. Is the Caspian a sea, or is it a lake? That sounds like a silly grammar question, doesn't it? Who cares what you call it? Well, global powers cared, to the tune of trillions of dollars. Under international maritime law, if the Caspian is defined as a sea, every country gets a coast, but the middle waters are international waterways, meaning foreign ships, including American or NATO warships, could enter. But if it is defined as a lake, the entire surface and seabed must be divided equally among the 5 bordering nations, blocking all outside powers completely. For 27 years, Russia and Iran fought tooth and nail to keep Western powers out of the Caspian, while massive international energy corporations scrambled to drill into newly discovered oil and gas reserves worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Then came the year 2018. In a secret summit in Aktau, Kazakhstan, the 5 nations signed a historical pact. They officially declared the Caspian as having a special legal status, prohibiting any foreign military presence on its waters. The Caspian Sea was officially closed to the rest of the world. It became a private, fortified inland lake controlled by a select few. And today, that secret route is active once again. Look closely at modern global shipping maps. While the world focuses on the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz, a silent, invisible trade route is humming across the Caspian. Cargo ships without active transponders, phantom vessels moving back and forth between Russian ports like Astrakhan and Iranian ports like Anzali, carrying raw materials, drone components, advanced weaponry, and sanction-bypassing goods, safe from the eyes of Western intelligence, protected by the impenetrable geography of the Caspian Basin. The same ancient trade network used by Persian silk merchants 400 years ago and coveted by Tsar Peter the Great has evolved into the ultimate dark corridor of modern warfare. History didn't just repeat itself in the Caspian, it built a modern fortress over ancient foundations. From the ancient Silk Road to Hitler's desperate search for oil at Baku, to today's hidden supply chains, the Caspian Sea remains what it has always been: a dark, deceptive mirror, a geographic trap. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's most secret trade and war route, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications.